Texas hash is a family recipe that I grew up on, and it's one of the first dishes I learned to make when I was growing up.
For this recipe, we're going to need 1 pound to 1.5 pounds of ground beef, 1 medium onion, 1 green bell pepper, 1 cup of uncooked white rice, I used jasmine rice, 1 14.5 ounce can of diced tomatoes, or a can of diced tomatoes with green chilies or other peppers, a half a teaspoon of black pepper, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and 2 tablespoons of chili powder. First, preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Then start cooking the meat. Make sure to break the meat up really well so you get a good mixture of ingredients at the end. While the meat is cooking, we're going to dice up the onion and green pepper. In my case, I purchased the green pepper a few months ago while it was on sale, diced it up, and froze it until I was ready to use it. I also use a food chopper to chop up my onion because I'm not fond of big pieces of onion, but using a chopper isn't necessary, especially if you like big pieces of onion. While we're waiting for me to finish cooking the meat, I wanted to go over some options available for this dish. As I mentioned before, I have peppers included with my diced tomatoes, and if you want a little heat, you can do this too. Without peppers or additional spices, you can easily serve this dish to people who don't like spicy food, as the chili powder alone is not enough to typically make it too spicy. My preference is to use diced tomatoes with diced green chilies, which you can get from several major brands of canned tomatoes, including some store brands. If you want to make a vegetarian-friendly dish, you can use pinto or kidney beans instead of ground beef. Just remember to drain the beans before adding them. Otherwise, you'll end up with too much liquid in the casserole. You can also use ground turkey or ground chicken instead of ground beef if you're avoiding red meat altogether. While you're waiting, feel free to make yourself a drink. I made myself a diet root beer with a splash of spiced rum. As you cook the meat, continue breaking it up into smaller pieces. Once the meat is thoroughly cooked, we're going to drain the grease from the pan. And then we're going to add the diced medium onions, the diced green pepper, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, a half a teaspoon of black pepper, and 2 tablespoons of chili powder. After adding those 5 ingredients to the beef, mix it all together really well. You want to mix the spices thoroughly so you don't get an excessively salty or excessively spicy bite when you're eating. You want to do this before adding the tomatoes because you can visually see how well the spices are mixed before you add the tomatoes. After mixing, add in the undrained can of tomatoes as well as 1 cup of uncooked rice. It's important to note that the rice is still uncooked at this point because it's going to cook while it's baking. Once we've got everything mixed up, we're going to pour it into the casserole dish and level out the mixture. Put the cover on it and put it into the oven for 45 minutes. Then go relax with the rest of your drink. After 45 minutes, remove the dish from the oven and mix it up. The goal here is to make sure that all of the rice that was on top of the mixture for the first 45 minutes is buried for the rest of the baking. The rice on top hasn't quite cooked yet because there wasn't enough liquid around it. Burying it gets it closer enough to the liquid to finish cooking, even though you probably don't see any liquid. If you skip this step, you're going to end up with a layer of crunchy rice on top of the dish. After mixing it up, we're going to put it back into the oven for another 10 minutes. After those 10 minutes, we're going to take it out of the oven and let it cool for 15 minutes. You want to keep the lid on it while it cools so that the dish doesn't get too dry. You normally get about 4 servings out of this dish, and the best part is how easily it reheats. Just 3 to 5 minutes in a microwave depending on the power of the microwave. I always pack up a few containers for lunches during the week, and I've even frozen it for a few weeks so I don't have to have the same dish every day for a week straight. And the thing I love about this meal is its economy. I mean, the ingredients can't cost more than $12 altogether. And you're making 4 servings. That's $3 a serving. Takes about an hour and a half. It may not be quick, but you can only get 2 out of 3. Cheap, good, and fast. And I'd give up fast for cheap and good. This is some good stuff.
If you like the video, be sure to like it and subscribe. Is there a dish you'd like to see us make? If so, message us on Facebook, James the Lazy Cook. Next week, we're going to show how to make soup from a poultry carcass.
How did I get a hair? I'm fucking bald. How did I get a hair in here?